Hello there guys, so we're back with our stream here from UK Games Expo. I'm here with Rogue from HAL 13 Games. Just before we get started, just make sure to remember that we're doing a raffle across this entire weekend where we're giving away this Sun table. What you've got to do is go over to the URL where you'll be able to find a form that you fill in. There's a very simple question that you've got to answer and it's a £5 raffle to get involved with it. If you get lucky, you might walk away with this Sun table. All of your very own to play some games on, which is pretty cool. Including some of the games that we're going to be looking at through the stream. So yes, I'm joined by Rogue, as I say, from HAL 13, and we're going to be looking at, is it Serengeti, A Race for Life?
Yes, correct, yeah.
So yeah, we're going to dive into this, learn a little bit about the game, how it plays and such, and yeah, maybe even play a couple of rounds of it as well, and see how it all comes together. So Rogue, take it away. Tell me how to learn how to play this game.
Okay, so Serengeti is a sort of majority game with deck building mechanic built into it. And essentially, it's a two-player game, and both of us, Ben and I, are conservationists. We're trying to make good in the world, and we go out, we study animals, and then we reapply that knowledge back into the world to try to raise the survival rates of the animals that we look after. So that's something that I really wanted, a positive message into a game. It is a competitive game, however. We want to prove to the other guy that we're actually better at it than he is. So
I have no doubt you're going to be a much better scientist than I am on this. You're going to be so much better.
it's a card game, obviously, but the luck factor plays really little. Okay. I've tried to build as many luck mitigation mechanics as possible.
That's always good to see.
So it is a fairly short game. You will have, or both of us will have, a maximum of 12 turns, and might end early, however, so it's not always a guaranteed 12 turns. And it takes maybe 30 minutes for a full game once you know the rules. Yeah. Every single decision you're going to make matters. So it's not a filler game where, it's not a set collection. Well, we'll talk through the game in more details, but it's you need to apply some thought process into the moves that you're going to be pulling. Yeah. I'm from a background of sort of tabletop miniature games.
As so most of us are, so yeah.
it is something that, sort of spin off from there. I wanted a mixture of a friendly and positive message, but friendly team, but still something that people have to apply some
thought planning ahead and things like that as well.
And hopefully it's still fun. I think it is. Well, it seems that from the people who play it, So, essentially, we start the game with, if you want to show one of your trail card, we start the game with 5 copies of a trail card, which will allow you to track some animals in the wild, meaning taking one from the supply and taking it into our deck to be able to use it later on. Now, all the cards have a number of options. Every time you have a card in your hand, there are 3 parts to the card, or rather the 2 parts on the front. You can decide to trigger the top part of the card or the bottom part of the card. And when there is a sun depicted on the card, that means that effect requires some energy, food, tools, equipment, traveling far, whatever it is. And essentially the back of the card provides that currency. So every time you have a card in hand, you have a choice to make. What effects do I want to produce? Does it have a cost in sun? And if so, then you have to side some of your other cards to be able to do that. So although there's 12 turns, every card is opening quite a few options for you. And the game itself has maybe 2-3 different very distinct strategic line, but it's more of a tactical kind of game. It is possible that both of us, when we start, go in completely different direction and never really overlap. However, the skill in this game is actually to grab points in the area that the other player focuses, if you focus on something. So this is a bit more of a blend. We're not going to make the same thing, but the better player is going to be able to grab a few points, which is not really his main strategy, if you wish, but he's still going to grab points over there. Okay, so how do you get points? Essentially, at the end of the game, we're going to break out the deck and figure out, for each of these animal type, who's got the most copies, the most specimen of that. And you will be, if you wish, the specialist in that kind of category of animal. And for each of those, there is a point. So if there's no tie on the number of specimens we have, then one of us will have a point. Okay. 1 point. And it does not matter how many more copies you have compared to your opponent. It's a strict majority. If you have 3 lions and I have 1, you still got the 1 point. So you basically want to try to get these points with a narrow margin as you can, really. There's not a lot of actions you're going to do in this game. Typically 3 to 4 actions a turn, 10 or 12 turn maximum. If you can squeeze everything in there and make the best of it, then you're a better player, you deserve to win.
I think you're gonna beat me on this. Let's get into it. Yeah. So.
Right. So one interesting aspect, I think it is interesting anyway. If you want to take one of those stacks, I actually take this one.
So let's get close up and see what's in
essentially, not all the cards in the stacks are the same. There's 9 copies of the animals, and then somewhere in the middle there's going to be a rock. So each of the animal tabs you saw in the middle of the table earlier has got one of those rocks in the middle somewhere. The only rule is that at the beginning of the game, it's not at the top, but it could be second in or all the way down. It's going to act both as a timer on the game, but also it's going to make that animal, it represents a sort of a scarcity, if you wish. So at some point, an animal is going to be harder to spot in the wild.
Right.
So from that point on, you can still learn about it. Remember, those cards represent information. You're not capturing animals in this game. You're learning about them. But at some point, they're going to be harder to find in the wild. So if you want to keep going with that sort of, research, then you will have to expand extra resources. And I'll show you how that works. So we'll leave the rock on the second card, but because I want to show you how that works. But otherwise, it'd be totally random, and as far as it's not on the top, basically we would start the game. All right. But I'm going to show you. If you want to go back to the close up. Yeah. So if you do a basic tracking, that's what you'd get. You'd have to commit a card. Your choice of card. In this case, of course, when you start the game, you have 5 copies of the trail, so of course the other card underneath is another trail.
But so this was the tracking symbol here, and
correct,
then that's the cost of it in the corner.
And there's also the limitation in that little corner you have. So it's a tracking, but that has a limitation. It cannot fetch something from under a rock. Okay. So if you place that on the table, you would make that move, which means that you would then be able to acquire any of the cards you want. Any of the cards you want. The suns depicted on them don't matter. They only matter when you want to trigger that specific effect, right?
Okay.
So there's no costs, if you wish, associated to get a particular animal. The cost is actually these 2 cards that you played. The purple, here, the trail card, and the sun dedicated to power it up. Okay, and then you can pick any animal you want. Except that, of course, like I said, there is a limitation. With the basic card, you can't go under a rock. So if you remember, we showed you there was a rock buried somewhere in that pile. If the rock is on top, then the basic card's not going to do. Okay.
So in this case, if this was played to try and find an animal, you couldn't go for one of the lizards because
correct.
It was underneath the thing.
However, if you still take this one, basically you can use the card by itself and use the bottom ability. The bottom ability basically allows you to swap around the order of the cards in that particular order. Right. So by playing a trail card by itself, essentially you're putting another specimen of the animal on top of.
Right.
So then you can follow up with a normal tracking and take it. Okay,
very
you would typically never play that card by itself unless you have the ability.
Unless you really wanted to try and get underneath something and get there.
Yeah, because if you do it by itself, then you're actually paying for your opponent, whose turns follow, to actually take
so
it.
You've got to do a little bit of planning ahead with that.
So it's basically an added cost. It costs you an extra card, and it also requires 2 of those cards to be these purple trail cards. Okay. Cool. There's other ways, however, that's a very expensive way. Plus, you can imagine, since it's a deck building game, as we go on, your deck's going to dilute, so these purple cards are going to be harder to get to in one hand. However, that is a basic card. However, the lizard that we just showed you is the rock specialist. He's basically doesn't care. He will he will help you learn about animals, lead you to animals.
Which makes sense, considering the creatures and stuff like that.
There's a lot of thematic in this game. There's certainly something that I spend a lot of time, hopefully you'll see through this live stream, that all the animals make sense in what they do. Like you said, the lizard is the rock guy, and you'll see when we go through, we can do it now actually. So there's an event deck. The event deck will time the game, so you will play, or we will play, up to 12 seasons if we were playing a full game.
Yeah.
Again, it could end early, depending on how the rock comes up to the surface of the decks. Okay.
Right.
In a full game, which involves 8 animals, the 8 animals you see there, then when the 5th rock comes to the surface, then you'd finish the season and play 1 more. Okay.
Yeah.
So it could be fewer than 12.
That's quite interesting because it's got the inbuilt timer mechanics in there, but then there's the variance, so you've got to work out how far you're going to try and push things, and then not go too far because you might sort of overreach and then sort of lose out.
Correct.
Well,
yes,
so.
there's certain moves that coming late in the game are risky because you can never tell how many ends you're going to have. Having said that, it's not a sudden death. There's nothing like that. I didn't want any part of the game to actually just decide the winner because it's such a tight game. We're going to go through it, but as I was saying to Ben, off camera earlier on, there's 16 theoretical points here to divide between us, and really it's just like there's going to be between evenly matched players a lot of ties. So there's not a lot of points, and the game really doesn't decide any of those points. They're just too precious to have the game ruin that experience. That's something that I really worked really hard for a couple of years, trying to make sure that any element of the game, the luck exists because I wanted to have that sort of small chaos, that sort of thematic as well. But nothing that is game deciding.
Because animals are never entirely predictable, so that kind of adds to that element of things. And the
of course, they have behavior that you can study and you expect them to do things, but it is definitely something that I wanted to kind of represent as well. So it had to be a sort of not fully open information and luck-free game. However, the luck basically you can manipulate it in such a way that it will not lose you a game, and that's pretty much in 100% of the cases. That's what I
Very cool. So can we go through some of the anatomy that we've got on the cards here as well, so we can show us some of the animals? So if we go through them maybe one at a time.
Yeah, so if we go through the lizards again. The lizard, as we discussed earlier, doesn't really care about a limitation about animals being buried under rocks or not. It allows you to do a tracking, so this is the same symbol as on the trail card, a tracking that doesn't suffer that penalty. You can still get something from over a rock, by the way. It doesn't have to be something under a rock. It just removes that limitation. And the difference between the top and the bottom is essentially what the cost is going to be. Either you can do it fairly expensively, so you pay extra to kind of get that limitation removed, or very cheaply. This one you can play the lizard by itself with no sun and get something from under a rock, but your turn ends. So you're only going to be able to do one cheap lizard basically per turn, right?
I see.
If the only reason why you would want really to spend extra is because you have many lizards in your hand too, and you want to play them both to get
them as a resource to try and get yourself more cards.
So you'd have to play the first one expending 2 suns to be able to follow up with a cheap one. Okay.
Yeah. So we go through the next one. So this one we've got one of the monkey cards. Or do you want to go?
Yeah, probably. I'm going to go with the easy one. So you
let's go for that then.
You kind of get the gist of them, and then the other ones are going to be easier to cope with. So this is a pure drawing card. So this one you will exchange the antelope for 2 fresh cards off the top of your deck. Okay, or you can expand 1 sun to draw 4. And then take 2 out of those 4 and reject 2.
Right.
So the top one will be a +1 to your end. The bottom will not, but hopefully will get you to what you need. Okay? Now, one very important thing in this game is that you never make a new deck mid-turn. We'll see how you refresh your hand. But it is very important because if you over-invest in drawing cards, at some point you have too many of them, and the only purpose they're going to be fulfilling is just as currency for something else.
Yeah, so as you can see here, it's still got the currency on the back of the cards there as well, which is similar with every card in this.
Every card is basically 3 possible use. So top ability, bottom ability, or currency. So there's 3 options, and I always try to not be in situations where the player will only have 1 out of these 3. So I always try to maintain 2 out of 3.
There's always some way to get a new tactical edge on where you're going with the strategy.
So when you have a hand of 5 cards, all of them will at least open up 2 different plays, if not 3. If you got only 1, that's probably because you painted yourself into that corner, right? So you diminish your options because you made certain choices, which might have been sound, to be honest. So it's not always the case that if you find yourself with a card that the only play you can do is that is because you did something wrong, but probably you did.
Cool. So which one are we going to look at next then? So.
Okay, so let's talk about the event deck. So the bird essentially is going to be the trade management guy of the game. The event deck is made up of 12 seasons, and you will have one drought for each animal. The drought means that on that particular season, that animal has moved away from the environment because water is scarce, or whatever it is, his prey is not sufficient for him to survive. So they move away. So for one turn, nobody will be able to get one of those cards, track one of these animals into the wild. Okay, and we use actually just a token to just place it. So if you have the giraffe, then we'd place that on top. Why is it important? Because remember, they're not all the same. So if you take a card, you commit to it. There's a situation where if you take a card, well, you can't put it back because your opponent probably doesn't want to, because there's things to actually for him to learn what the next card is. That's why this counter is important. If you commit to a card, you have to take it. And so this counter will move around depending on which drought is affected on that particular season. But there's another type of card. So you have, like, in the event deck, you have like one drought for each animal, and then you have like a third of the card, which is going to be 4 cards, are infestations. These red cards, they essentially represent scorpions getting into your bunkers. So you have a choice. You can basically just go out and study some more animals, or maybe, just maybe, you should spend a tiny bit of amount of resources and time dealing with them, because the guy who's done a night shift is trying to have a nap, you know. so he can do his job the next day, and maybe you want to make his life safe. So it's kind of a threat management, and it's essentially one way to kind of reward players to try to shift the game into their favor on the competition track, which we haven't talked about yet.
You can see this here, which is got, like you were saying to me earlier, it's got a little bit of like a tug of war element to it. So
so basically you can resist this, and it will move. The competition track will move in 2 ways. It will be moving in your disfavor if you get stung by these scorpions that we just talked about, and essentially you will be moving those away from you. Okay, so it's not good. So you want to try to avoid that. Of course, it's a tug of war. So if nobody really cared about those scorpions and let them sting their life away, or your life away rather, you know, this might end up at 0, but statistics says that about 4 out of 5 games will decide on 1 point for one player randomly. Now, this is not a game where, especially as I said, the points are so precious. What you want to do is making sure that if it's not at 0 at the end, it's in your favor and not your disfavor, right? And not the game just decide. Now, the bird, coming back to the bird, is the guy who's going to help you to permanently, at least. There's other ways to momentarily kind of push the threat away. But the bird will allow you to basically dispatch out of your deck a scorpion.
Which is what this bit here at the bottom.
This is the bottom part.
So as you can see, it's got the sun symbol there, which is where the resource cost comes in, and then this allows you to get rid of 2 of them, is it? Or
no, it's just one.
All of them? Or just
just the one. Yeah, I have iconography is quite clear actually, but this means actually taking away when there's just one removing. Is a consequence. So anyway, but so per bird and activation of the bird, you can get rid of 1 scorpion.
So if you're unfortunate to have got quite a lot of scorpions into your hands, you pick up
good
a couple
players
of birds.
Shouldn't have.
They've been sleeping too much and all the scorpions went to their bunkers.
Yes. I mean, it's okay. You can push your luck, with scorpions, but I think that it's definitely a game where I try to not reward kind of luck as such. So push your luck you can. Sometimes you don't have a choice, because expending like 2 cards to get rid of a scorpion might actually just spoil one of your turn badly. And maybe you want to push your luck if you think you have a chance to get rid of it before it gets to you or to your guy. But Ideally, you want to try to provide, you know, the best environment for your team.
Indeed, yeah. And so what's the top card? So we've got
the top card is basically it's a drawing card. When you don't have a scorpion to deal with, remember I said there's 3 options. I always try to keep 2. If you don't have that other ones, basically you'd have to use it as a currency. In this case, you can cycle it out to get a card that might open up your turn with something else. Okay.
Yeah. Very handy card there. So let's move on to the next one. So which one are we going to look at next then?
Yeah. So well, I mean, we can cover some of it really, and then we'll have a quick go.
Let's go for it. Yeah. Let's probably one more, and then we'll have a couple.
The lion is actually quite an important one. So let's cover that one. Yeah. The lion essentially has 2 abilities. The top one is one way to move the competition track in your favor. So when you actually expand 2 suns and play that lion, you're going to move that track in your favor. Okay? Now the problem with that is that the lion is actually taking the best bit and generates a carcass. Carcass go into your deck and they can be used to pay for abilities. But at the end of the game, if you have more than your opponent, you will lose 2 points. So the first time you do the lion effect, you're actually not winning a point, you're losing a point.
Okay.
I like these effects where, you know, you have to think and plan to turn that into a positive.
Right.
Okay? Yeah. And going quickly while you've got these cards in hand, what you would normally do is basically use at some point a hyena to get rid of those carcasses, right? And that would be a way not to lose those 2 points at the end of the game. Okay. Now, the other part of the lion is this very high investment but high reward kind of effect.
Yep.
Which allows you, so if you dedicate 4 cards, which is essentially pretty much your entire turn, except extra card you might get, you might send it to the savannah, and this opens up a new majority. At the end of the game, we look at whoever's got the most lion there, and it's for 3 points. If you have more than your opponent, it's 3 points. Now, the important thing is that the ones you send there don't count in your deck. Right. So the more you invest there, the more you secure 2 points, not 1.
But you're
not 3.
You're then suddenly not using them as resources for you to help you throughout the rest of the game as well.
Because all the ones you send there are not going to count towards the point that is decided on lions in the deck.
Yeah.
Okay?
Cool.
So there's a lot of things in this game that basically, you know, just every time you overinvest, that probably means that it's like insurance. You know, it's like death, tax, and insurance, really. There are sure things in life. So there's a few things in this game that works this way. If you want to be extra sure to get something, then it costs you something.
Yes.
Nothing's free.
I see what you mean. Yeah, cool. So let's have a quick go at maybe a couple of rounds. So if you want to start things off and take a
so the first thing you would do on a turn is reveal a new event, and that would decide what happens. So in this case, that would mean that neither Ben or I can actually track elephants in the wild. They've moved away because of water scarcity, whatever it is. Their water point is dry at that point.
Yeah.
And then basically I would take my turn, if I'm the first player, which I think we decided.
Yeah.
Then I would do a tracking, and I could decide on anything in there except the elephants, because they're affected by the drought. So let's say that I am going to be a safe guy. Remember, one out of 3 cards here is a scorpion, and okay, so I'm going to buy an insurance card.
I was going to say, that sounds like a really good way to start the game off, I think, getting one of those, just in case.
I mean, for beginners it probably is, but actually the monkey, which we haven't covered, is kind of a bit of a jack of all trades.
Okay.
You pay over the odds, but you can do the same thing as a bird if you want to as a monkey.
Okay.
So it's not a necessary kind of first play. Actually, as an experienced player, I rarely do that. It's just I obviously want to introduce people to the game. So typically I would possibly get a monkey on the first turn, because he's the guy that will allow me to redirect you know, my trajectory in the early games when I don't necessarily have what I need to cope with certain things that might happen. And then, so this card will go into my discard pile, and then eventually I will be able to use it. Okay, remember, those 2 cards allow me to get any of those cards. Okay, the suns on them don't matter at that point. It's only when I'm going to want to use them. Then I can follow up with the second one, and I might just decide to track a lizard, which is the other insurance card, but I'm going to go for something else. I'm going to go for the draw card and take this. And then I don't have to show it to Ben, but I will here because anyway, everybody knows what it is because it's the beginning of the game.
All the same cards at the beginning.
The cards you don't use, you have to purge. It's an optimization game. What you want to do is try to use as many cards as you can, basically. Okay, you don't keep cards turn on turn. The only exception is the elephants, and we haven't really covered that. We won't really have time in this live stream. But yeah, so any card you don't use, you shuffle out. The only thing that your opponent is able to see is the top of your discard. So anything you pay as cost and anything you don't use, just put them underneath the card that you've, and then basically clean up your area. And then that would be Ben's turn, and he would do basically pretty much the same thing, except that the choice of what he tracks is up to him.
So this is only flipped over at the start of both of our turns.
So this is a weather effect. It will affect both of us. There's nothing like, oh, you lucky bat. You know,
I know what you mean.
You know, I got an infestation, you didn't. If an infestation comes up, basically it will affect both of us, and we'd have to deal with the same threat. Eventually, you know, there might be a difference in terms of the timing on how easy it is for one player or the other, but that will also be partly built into what they did earlier in the game.
Okay, I see what you mean. So I'm going to go for this, and I'm going to get myself on one of these creatures. So I really like the idea of picking up one of the monkeys because you said they're pretty interesting. So I'm going to spend, so as you can see when we go here, spend one of the things there with the sun resource there, and I'm going to pick up one of these monkeys. If we could just go through a quick look through of what this card does anatomically and see what it's
okay, yeah. So the top part is essentially you will be able to pick any of the skills in the supply that has a cost of 0 or 1 sun and reproduce it for 2 suns. That's so you don't have to have the card. So that means that if you need to get rid of a scorpion, then you can do it with 2 suns and a monkey instead of 1 sun and a bird, right?
Who knew that monkeys were so useful? It was
yeah, but I mean, it is kind of a complex card to know when you kind of not wasting a sun to do that.
Yeah.
Now the bottom part is kind of interesting. It's basically provides you the same cost. So again, you're looking for a 0 or 1 sun skill to trigger. But what you do is that you go into your deck, fetch that card that does that thing. It's like you had it in your hand, if you wish.
Okay.
So you can equal cost if it's a one sun ability. Okay.
All right, that's pretty awesome.
So it builds flexibility into your game. I really like the monkey. Most of the demo I do at my booth, by the way. We're at UKGE Expo.
We are, yes.
We're exhibiting, obviously. We're all one booth L9. Come for a game if you're in. And yeah, like I said, the monkey and the giraffe we don't play in the demo because they're a bit more advanced to know when to play that premium.
Cool, yeah. So I think I'm gonna try and sort of like safeguard myself a little bit for the future. And I'm gonna pick up one of these as well. So I'm gonna spend another one of these sun resources and stuff. So we'll go back to one. You can see what we're doing here. So spend that card, the resource there. One of the eagle cards, so that'll help me just in case those scorpions come up in the future. And then as before, we've got 1 resource left over here, one of these cards.
Yeah, and there is.
So there we go. We've looked ahead. So yeah, and then of course we go on to the next turn. We flip over.
Yeah, the next turn would be actually in this case an infestation. I was actually peeking. I'm not supposed to. By the way, the giraffe is actually that's one job she can do is actually peek ahead of time. So she can peek ahead of time in different things, The long neck allows you to do that. The other thing, actually, if we want to talk about the giraffe quickly, is the fact that so the top one will allow you to look the top 2 cards of any deck. So you could take a stack into the supply and look at the second card in, so only you would know whether the rock is next or not. Or you could peek at the next 2 seasons, so you know how it's going to unfold.
Very cool.
The bottom part is actually like a super trail. Essentially, it has the same limitation as a trail card, so you won't be able to track something under a rock, but when you do, at a premium, so it costs 1 more sun, the card doesn't go in your discard, it goes on the top of your deck. So you can get access to it earlier. So as the game progresses, obviously, it can be actually a game winner in some cases to spend that premium. Like I said, I don't tend to play demos with them because they're a bit more.
And so as we were saying, we're here at the UKGE Expo. Are you guys selling Serengeti here at the event as well?
It's been on the market since October last year at Spiel. We debuted it. We actually are launching a Kickstarter next week for expansions. There will be kind of 30 dex cards that shuffle the setup. There's a lot of reparability in the base game because of all the variability.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see how it all works with the shuffle, the way these are going to come together as decks, and how this event deck is going to work as well. It's going to be very interesting to see how that comes together too. Yes, this tug of war element as well is really cool. So
yeah, you have to adapt to what your opponent does as well. So there's loads of factor that makes that you can play 50. Actually, I played 100 times. I still like it. I'm not sick of it yet. But the expansions are kind of like, well, you would basically phase out the main event. So in this case, the infestation, and play with another one. The bird, of course, is tied to the scorpion, so would go, and then possibly another would go out as well.
Oh, okay. So and you got even more replay options built into the game.
Yeah, so you would get a different. Or instead of having 4 infestation hero event deck, you'd have like a different one. So I have 2 coming up in October, but we're kickstarting them next week. Yeah. So keep an eye on our site, which is Serengeti.store. So you can go there, and there will be a live Kickstarter link there.
Well, there you go, guys. You can come and check out the Kickstarter, as you say, and check out the website. Pick up Serengeti for yourself. If you're here at UK Games Expo as well, you can come and play the game. So if you haven't managed to get down on Friday, maybe come back on Saturday or Sunday, check out the game and hang out with Rogue here and play some cool games and try some of this interesting stuff here. So yes. As a reminder, we're doing our live blogs and our live streams across all of this weekend. So we're doing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're also giving away this Geek and Sun table, as you can see here. All you got to do is enter a raffle. It's £5 to get stuck into it. It's a very nice table, isn't it, Ray?
It is.
It's very cool.
It's brilliant. I want one.
If you enter the raffle,
I will.
Insider trading. But yeah, if you get stuck into that, you can answer a couple of questions, get yourself entered into that, and you can win yourself one of these really cool tables. Of course, we're going to be doing some prizes across the rest of the weekend as well. So get into these posts and comment on them, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks again, Rogue. That was a
Thank
really
you
cool
very much,
way of going
it was very nice.
Yeah, and
let's do it again soon.
Awesome. We'll see you guys very, very soon for the next video coming up quite soon indeed.